Hi, I'm Andrew McNair, and it was a moment that stunned the world. 24-year-old Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin collapsed in the middle of a football game, suffering from cardiac arrest. Immediately, donations started pouring into his toy drive fundraiser. By the time Damar recovered, his charity had received over $9 million. He became a philanthropist almost overnight and plans to use the funds to support young people through education and sports. It's an inspiring story, and it's incredible. Simply put, philanthropy is generosity to improve the welfare of others. That's what philanthropy is. It's giving out of what you have. Now, many people wrongly assume only the wealthy or celebrities can be philanthropists, but nothing could be further from the truth. No, philanthropy isn't something you wait to do until you're wealthy or you're at the top of your field. Philanthropy isn't reserved for the top 1%. It's for you, and I'm here to democratize philanthropy. What would happen if every believer practiced philanthropy and tithed? It could change the world, literally. You might be asking, how is that possible? Let me throw out some stats for you, and I want to break these down for you and go slowly because these are massive numbers. If every Christian in the American church tithed 10%, there would be close to an extra $300 billion to fund ministry work locally and globally. What could we accomplish together as the church with that kind of resources? Let me share with you. I could probably spend this whole video talking about the ripple effect that it would create across the globe, but just to hit the highlights, for starters globally, $25 billion could relieve global hunger, starvation, and deaths from preventable diseases in just 5 years. $12 billion could eliminate illiteracy in 5 years. $15 billion could solve the world's water and sanitation issues, specifically in places in the world where 1 billion people live on less than $1 a day. $10 billion would free close to 27 million people living in modern-day slavery today. That's globally. Now let's talk about locally. $1.8 billion could add a church campus or prison ministry in roughly 1,800 prisons in America. $1.1 billion could add 5,500 new family counseling centers to help out with mental health issues. What's more, we could fully fund the church's ministry with $1 billion training 20,000 new pastors, and $500 million would raise the median salary for current pastors. We haven't even touched on the Great Commission. $2.5 billion could fully fund the Great Commission by translating the Bible into the remaining 1,800 languages that have no scripture in their native tongue. $1 billion could fully fund all overseas mission work. These are incredible numbers. They almost hurt my brain to think about how big of an impact that they could make on the world. We could go on all of these highlights. There are just some of the possibilities that if every Christian tithed in America the full 10% of their gross income, the impact that we could make towards the gospel. Now, anyone can be a philanthropist. You may say, but I don't lead anyone. You are more of a leader than you can think of. Each of us has greater influence around the people around us than we will ever know this side of eternity. People are watching how we spend our money. Your family, friends, and coworkers are watching how you spend your resources, and if you give your money at all. That brings us to our next point. Philanthropy can change the world because giving is contagious. I'm sure you've heard and experienced the paying it forward concept, or saw someone on Facebook with a GoFundMe page and how it creates a ripple effect through a local community. Whether you believe that actually is generosity or not, you can check out my other videos on those topics, but the principle is still the same. Giving is contagious. Let's go back a few thousand years and look at an ancient story out of Exodus. The people of Israel had just been freed from 400 years of slavery. They're out in the wilderness. They're out in the desert where nothing is happening. It's here that they have to mold and shape their new society and new identity as people. Paramount in their minds is wanting a place that God could dwell with them, not on a mountaintop or in a cloud, but in their midst. This meant building a tabernacle. There was no Home Depot, there was no Lowe's where they could go just get the supplies. Instead, God tells Moses to ask the people for donations of building materials like gold and silver and wood and animal skins and precious stones. And generosity starts spreading like wildfire. The people give out of their own possessions. Women gather together weaving cloth. Skilled craftsmen start constructing each needed piece, and the people are giving, and they keep giving, and they give and give. And Moses records that the people didn't stop. The giving was contagious. They still kept bringing him free will offerings every morning, so that all the craftsmen who were doing every sort of task on the sanctuary came and each from their task that he was doing and said, Moses, the people bring much more than enough for doing the work that the Lord has commanded us to do. So Moses gave a command, and the word was proclaimed throughout the camp. Let no man or woman do anything more for the contribution of the sanctuary. So the people were restrained from giving. They were restrained from bringing. I mean, isn't that amazing scripture? It's really challenging to my heart, and I hope it's convicting to you. Moses told them to stop giving. Can you imagine if this happened in your church today where the pastor was like, hey, you're tithing too much. Stop tithing. We don't need any more. If you've inspired others around you to give so much that the church was like, we have enough, we're good, don't give anymore, imagine this impact. This shows that philanthropy can change the world because giving is contagious. It takes our eyes off ourselves and puts it on the needs of others. We talked at the beginning of this video about celebrities who give. All too often, they give out of their excess, out of their abundance. Let's look at the opposite example. Jesus looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts in the offering box, and he saw a poor widow put in just 2 small copper coins. And he said, truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them, for they all contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, put in all she had to live on. She's one of the original everyday philanthropists. A philanthropist is just someone that gives a large percentage of their income or their assets away. See, the widow offered 2 small coins, which together equaled 1% of a denarii, which was a day's wage. So it was possibly equal to about $1 in today's day. It doesn't seem like a lot to us. Monetarily speaking, the others' gifts clearly had more value. So why does Jesus say she put in more than all the rich men did? Because God is looking at the heart of the sacrifice rather than the amount. The others gave out of their abundance and the extra that they had. They weren't going to miss out. They were going to stay at their same standard of living. But she lowered her standard of living. She gave sacrificially. The verse says it was literally all that she had to live on. Imagine taking the money that you set aside for your mortgage or your rent payment and giving that to the Lord. Or heading to the grocery store with the cash in your pocket for groceries, but turning around and giving that amount to the church instead. What kind of faith would that require? Her gift had a greater value than the other gifts because she was sold out for the gospel. She was sold out for the Lord. You might be saying that you can't give or be generous because you don't have a lot. Nothing could be further from the truth. As the widow has shown us, has been an example to us, God will use any gift, no matter how small. We're still talking about it thousands of years later. Give out of what God has given you, and he will multiply it in ways you can't even imagine. Philanthropy is for everyone. No matter how much you make, even the smallest gift can make a difference that can change the world. Here at the Everyday Philanthropist, we don't take donations. My job is for you to be convicted and inspired to give more to the great causes that you care about. I love how this response to a story like this is usually, well, God isn't asking me to give money. that goes to my mortgage payment or groceries. That's too extreme. Maybe not. But what about money allocated towards an entertainment or vacations or even hobbies? What about work bonuses or other monetary gifts? The early church was so eager to give that they started selling things they owned so that they had money to give to the poor. We see that in Acts 2:45, saying, and they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing to the proceeds to all who had need. When's the last time you downsized so that others could have more and others could have that were in need? The blessing of generosity was worth more than the value of keeping their stuff. Yet sadly, believers today aren't even tithing 10%. I'm challenging you today to be a part of the giving generation. How can you do that? You get off the sidelines. If you're not tithing, start with tithing a few percent and gradually work up to a full 10% tithe. If you're tithing but not the full 10%, increase your giving 1% more today and above your current tithe and keep adding an extra 1% until you reach that 10%. And when you reach that 10%, don't stop there. Keep on going. Tithe 50% of your income. Make that your next goal, like it was mine. Tithing is just the start of a lifestyle philanthropy that can change the world, and you can be a part of that change. I leave you with the words of Franciscus Quarles. He that gives all, though but little, gives much, because God looks not to the quantity of the gift, but the quality of the givers. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to click subscribe and check out my book, The Giving Crisis, by going to richyoungpowerful.com/book. Also, check out my new podcast, Rich, Young, and Powerful, on iTunes and other podcast platforms, because you can hear about other people's story of going from maybe greedy to being generous like mine. Maybe you'll hear from other philanthropists who have actually utilized their time, resources, and money to help their mission. Until next time, remember to invest your life into something that will outlive it. Now that's living to give.